This episode is dedicated to the loving memory of Eric's father, Jeffrey Harold Yamashita, who passed away at the age of 81 years old on April 5th, 2021. Welcome to Iron Sights. This podcast candidly seeks to create opportunities and deliver impact by sharing the experiences and wisdom of successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders who unapologetically aim to win in health, fitness, business, and life. I'm your host, Scott Howell. Welcome to Old School Meets New School. Tradition meets innovation, and imperfection meets excellence. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. So here we are, we're back. I want to welcome, sorry, I've already got my tongue tied. We haven't even started yet. Eric Big E Yamashita. He's Hawaii's best personal trainer. He's the master of living and making every day better. We're going to talk about Everyday Better Hawaii. He's a former NPC bantamweight competitor. He's a proud dad. Hopefully we can get into that a little bit today. It's interesting. Eric and I have never met face to face, and that's one of the reasons I was so encouraged to do this podcast and so pumped up about you being on today, Eric, is how we met. And really, it's all been through social media, and that's a first for me. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, but more about you and kind of the things you've been doing in the industry, and more specifically the things that you've been doing in fitness for people, and obviously the things you're doing with Everyday Better Hawaii, because that has been hugely influential for me, and why I've been so enamored by what you do. So thanks for being on today, bud.
Happy to be here. Very excited. Honored to be here with you.
Yeah. So you are you're in Oahu, yeah? Oahu,
correct.
Right.
The main island, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are. We're separated by a couple hours and a lot of the Pacific Ocean here, and it's interesting. Again, like we've never met. Like I feel like I've known you for a long time, and this is the first conversation we're having, which again is odd for me to say because I have a very close circle of friends, and there's some sort of a connection here I want to dig into and hopefully understand better by the time we're done today, and hopefully when the traveling, precautions lift and we can get back out there to the island. Love to connect sometime. Come get a workout with you, man.
For sure. Either way, I'd love to come up there too.
So let's start right in, man. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, and I want to know more about kind of how you got to where you're at. So take us way back, man. Were you always a fitness guy? I mean, was fitness always your thing?
No, I mean, I'm the oldest of four kids. My dad is half Japanese, half Chinese from Hawaii. My mom's 4'11", Irish, English, Welsh lady from Long Island, New York.
Okay.
Came to Hawaii to get her master's degree at University of Hawaii, and met a local guy at the beach, and that was it. So my dad played hard to get, and they dated, and 4 kids later, a bunch of half-breed kids, and I'm the oldest of 4. So my dad is about 5'10", maybe a little shorter now. He's 81, and my mom's 4'11". So I got the 4'11" from my mom.
Okay.
I'd like to say I was 5'1", but I'm probably about 5 feet now. I'm almost 55. My dad was in law enforcement. He was a cop, 45 years. He was in law enforcement.
Okay.
I'm fortunate both of my parents are still healthy and alive, 81 and 82. The best living examples for me daily, for sure. I'm so grateful. But growing up, I was a small guy. I mean, 5 feet, maybe 95 pounds soaking wet by the time I graduated from school. So I had an instrumental coach or a PE teacher. His name was L.J. Clayton. In fact, I'm trying to find him. I found that he lives in Texas. He was the biggest guy I've ever seen in my life. So I went to a private school, was predominantly Asian.
Okay.
Hawaii Baptist Academy. So we call it HBA, which means Hawaii's best Asians. But it was 75% Asian and maybe 25% Caucasian. And here you have a black athlete. And he played for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Toronto Argonauts. He was a wide receiver. So he's probably 6'1", 225, 215. But to me, that was huge. And he was instrumental because I took weightlifting class in 10th grade. And I'm maybe 85. And he just made such a great impression on me. And he's like, Yamashita, you're probably not going to be big, probably not going to be tall. But he was, you know, he was real. He was a realist, but he was also very positive. He goes, but you can be strong. You can control who you are. You can be someone, and you can make an impact on people. So he taught me how to work out, and I became a pretty good bench presser. And to this day, I'm still grateful because he was so impactful in my life. He made me feel like I was okay being my size. My parents raised me to do anything I wanted to do. I never felt like I was, because I'm small, I'm not going to play sports and become someone. I think my confidence grew from there, from the way I was raised by my parents, and then that first initial motivation from that coach. So graduating from high school, I was 95 pounds. Couldn't even wear adult large shirts. I mean, adult small shirts. My waist was 25, so I couldn't wear adult pants. I mean, I was just a small guy. But I went to college and I went with a friend to a gym. And after the first couple of days at that small little spa fitness center, I was hooked because I thought this is something I can do. Because I wasn't big enough to play team sports. I wrestled, right? Which is typical.
Right. The high school wrestling coach was probably chasing you around, going because they needed those. They needed the 95-pound wrestlers. That was an easy win, right? I mean, you probably didn't have to wrestle half the meets.
It was good and bad because I didn't have to make weight, but it didn't make me train hard because I never had to cut weight.
Right.
So it was kind of a so I never had that team sport thing. And I knew that if I'm going to do something, I got to do it by myself. Went to the gym, met a bunch of people, and they were real cool and open-minded. And I just found something that I liked. And I thought, oh man, this is a perfect way to get girls. That was the thing, So I started working out in college and I was hooked. So by this, after a year or so, I'm like 110 pounds. I felt like I was the Hulk. So 15 pounds on my size.
That's a lot of weight on a 95-pound frame. Yeah.
And everybody's into their cars. I'm like, man, the girls, they don't care about the cars. They want a guy with a nice body. And that was my motivation to start. Yeah. And then after about a year, the guys at the gym were like, you've been around a lot. We like you. We want to give you a job. So this is 1986, dream job. So ever since 1986, I've been involved in the gym industry since 86. I worked at the front desk and I was like, man, I've died and went to heaven because I get to spend all my time in the gym.
Right. And get paid. Yeah, you get to spend all day at the gym and you get paid.
Yeah, and so I did my homework there and I spent all the time at the gym and I just basically absorbed everything. This was the 80s and Hawaii was a small bodybuilding culture. Arnold Schwarzenegger was actually sponsoring the Hawaiian Islands. The only national qualifier was the Hawaiian Islands, and Arnold was the co-sponsor because he actually came to Hawaii before he got big and met this guy, Mitz Kawashima, who became one of his mentors, and they became good friends. So Arnold would come to Hawaii every year and have this contest. So I surrounded myself at the gym with these bodybuilders. I'm like, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, but I thought, man, it's a great way to meet girls, a great way to get bigger. And by the time 87 came around, I did my first contest and I think I dieted down, I weighed like 114 pounds, soaking wet. And the weight class was 154. So
you're right.
Giving up 40 pounds. Yeah.
So you're coming in, you're not only are you shorter than everybody else, but you're going to be way lighter than everybody else. Oh, yeah. However, people that don't understand the sport, it really is about kind of lines and how your physique is put together. It's not necessarily about how big you are, right? Size is important, but it's how you're proportioned and how you've done work to make those proportions work for you. Yeah. So have you done this at this point?
I just figured out this is one thing that I could control. This is one of my factors that I could do really well at. I got great results. I really enjoyed it. I got attention from people. Quick side note, there was this company called Nautilus Fitness. Do you remember Nautilus?
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was 3 gyms in Hawaii called Nautilus, but Nautilus was built for the average American male, 5'8" to 5. I could never fit any of the machines.
It's the same.
I learned to adapt. Yeah.
The females had the same problem getting into those machines. That stuff was way too big for them. They really messed that up. Yeah. There's a history behind that, and then they opened women's onlys.
I had to adapt a bunch of stuff. And so the first contest, I never did any cardio because I couldn't reach any of the cardio machines.
Wow.
In 87, the cardio equipment was very archaic. It was nothing like it was now.
Right.
So I didn't do any cardio. I just suffered and I was eating lean cuisines. I figured I need about 1,000 calories, lean cuisines. And then the last week somebody taught me how to deplete my carbs, which I thought I was going to die. So long story short, I go through this contest. There's 9 guys in the novice class, one class. I'm 114. The class goes up to 155. I got second.
Wow.
Out of 9 guys, and I win best poser.
Wow.
And that was it. That was it. I'm hooked. People are screaming my name. I'm staging my underwear, and all of a sudden I'm somebody, and that was 1987. So ever since then, that basically started my bodybuilding and my personal training.
Wow, how many things come into line to get to that point? What an awesome story, and we're only partway through. Just kind of going back, man, I can't imagine what it was like getting through. So there's no sports happening for you because you're again 95 pounds wearing. You're still shopping in the little kids department, right?
For sure, yeah.
Right, so baseball probably not happening, football probably not happening. Wrestling is kind of the only thing, and so you get out of there and you find this community, right, of people that are sort of accepting you, and you're having fun doing it, and you take off with it, and that's. I think a lot of us, like you, have a similar story in that finally finding the gym ultimately is kind of their sanctuary. Like whether it is I never played a sport and I found comfort and I found this community in the gym, or I did play a sport for a long time and then that time runs out. For me, it was football, and when football was over, for me, it was like, well, now what do I do? And I'm in the gym. I was used to spending 3 hours in the gym every day there was a purpose I had, that I wanted to compete. I needed to be bigger, stronger, faster. And that was gone. And so there was this transition. And I remember feeling that, this bodybuilding thing is something I may try and make a run at. I was never any good at it, man. I never took second in anything. Bodybuilding, I dabbled a little bit and changed my path. But, and then going back to the influences that you had, there's always generally one person. It's many people that influence and shape who we are, and you're fortunate to have, great parents who supported you, and then also obviously are still healthy and are there to continue to support you. But there's usually a coach. There's usually an athlete or a coach or teacher somewhere along the line. I had one of those too, who and I think more than anything, he was real with me, like you said, but he believed in me. And it wasn't like when I didn't believe in myself, I didn't even know what that meant. But, he leaned on me, and that made me better, and it made me want to be a leader, and it made me want to excel. And then, that leads into the weight room, which a lot of people may not be able to connect with, but you do have control in there, and you see the physical result, and you can feel the physical results of the work that you put in. And then, you took it to the next level. Now you're putting it on stage and you're having a great time with it. And you don't get best poser just because you know how to do a double front bicep and a real lat spread. When you get best poser because you're putting on a show, right? Yeah. So you must have been doing that well. Did you have anybody helping you with that, or did you just go out there and do your thing?
Yeah, fortunately, because I was in the gym industry, I immediately got respect because I was working the desk. So being working the desk, I'm a talker. So that's where I kind of build my repertoire with the girls, with the guys. And I just learned to talk to different people and meet so many different people across the day that I learned different stories. And each person, like I tell my son, I tell different people that each person you meet, you can always learn something from, what to do or what not to do. Right. So I run into all these guys who I thought were like old guys. They were like 30 or 40 back then. But, they're successful bodybuilders, successful powerlifters. And I would just take a little bit of each one from these guys. Just so happened, this guy went to school in Pepperdine and came back for a semester. And he became my friend. This guy, Kevin, he did a show called the Russ Warner Classic. It was way back in California in like 1985. Mm-hmm. And he did a show, and he had the most experience that I thought, even though he only did one show. And he taught me what he learned from some of the guys up there. So basically, he kind of just ran me through some basic stuff. And the two managers of the gym were top level competitive bodybuilders. So basically, I was doing all the grunt work. I was scrubbing the pools and checking people in and signing memberships. And they in turn were just teaching me stuff. And I would just sit there and listen to them talk stories about 80s bodybuilding. And I just basically absorbed, just every day I was just absorbing stuff. And so kind of a hodgepodge of those two or three guys, they basically told me what to do. And the light bulb went on. I guess I've been a control freak for a long time. So this is something I could control, something that could make me better, something that could make me happy, something that got me attention. So all these things are checking the boxes. And those people just taught me the real basics. I tell people all the time, there was no internet. This is 87. Internet's 92, so all we do is we read magazines.
Magazines, right.
Yeah, so whatever I read, that was the Bible. I mean, I learned about supplements and things would come into the gym. They'd send like a flyer to the gym to sell the supplement, and I wouldn't even get to the manager. I'd look it up and I'd order the stuff and I'd resell it at the front desk. They didn't care. Yeah. But I learned lots of these skills about supplements and bodybuilding. So I guess this guy, Kevin Lee, was one of my friends. He runs a bunch of gyms in Medford, Oregon now. Okay. But he was one of the persons that really taught me like the basics of bodybuilding. It was really, really raw basic stuff. But back then, that's all I needed. And then going back to my parents, I've done 29 competitions. So it's more than most people can do in their lifetime. And my parents have gone to 28. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 20.
Yeah, so it's always been, it's been an evolution.
You stepped on stage 29 times.
Correct. Yeah.
That's incredible. So in that amount of time, you've seen so much change. I mean, when you started, bodybuilding was, it was kind of making its way back in, right? It had kind of gone away for a while. You had the days of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbo and, all these guys, and then it kind of disappeared a little bit. And then it was starting to come back. I mean, who are you? Gosh, I mean, I'm going back to the late 80s and then through the 90s and the guys that we were watching. I was looking at Flex magazine and Muscle and Fitness magazine and those kind of things. I mean, I remember guys on the small stature side, because there were some giants and some monsters back then. But guys like Sean Ray and Lee Priest and. Right. I mean, I remember like Flavio Bacchianini. Yeah. I mean, there's a guy that came in at 4'11" and he was showing up and he was competing. He wasn't winning Olympias, but he was competing and making a show. Who were you watching in the 80s that was influential for you? Who were you sort of aspiring to maybe look or compete with? Oh,
I mean, was Danny Padilla, Ed Corney. Ed Corney's a puppet. He was from Hawaii.
Right.
But definitely like there was this guy El Shabat Mobrook, which is way before everybody's time.
Right, no, I remember.
There was not Mohammed Benazir.
Yeah. He was there too. Poser.
Yeah, Benazir. Yeah.
He might have been 5'5".
It was obviously like Sean Ray turned pro right around the first time I started. In fact, I talk to Sean every week. He turned pro in 87, 89, 88 when I first started competing. Lila Brada. So right. I meet all these guys. And, Lee Priest. Back in the day, I tell people too, we'd have contests here in Hawaii. They'd bring a guest poser in to fly into pose at the show. So you'd always want to go see it. Now you can see these guys all the time on the internet. So it's not the same impact. When you're 21 years old and, Lee Haney first came in 89. Yeah. He was this the most incredible guy the biggest black guy I've ever seen with the hugest back. He came backstage and I knew everybody and I was talking to him like, I never seen somebody so big in my life. I was like, it was incredible because you see these guys, in person because they're guest posing. It was a different time. But yeah,
it was, and you're right. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about that in terms of your exposure that you had there in Hawaii then versus now, and kind of the sport in general. But so you're competing, right? And you're getting introduced to this and you're learning a lot about yourself, about your own physique, your training, your nutrition. Every day is a new day. And certainly every contest you're learning a little bit more. What else? You learn anything else about this? Is anything shocking you as you're going along? Are you finding things out or learning things about the sport of bodybuilding, the business of the sport of bodybuilding, the back end of things that's I'm inspiring you to keep going, or maybe questioning what you've gotten into? Are there questions going through your head at this point, or at any point?
No, because I mean, I always had college education, I had good jobs, and this was such a good hobby for me. I mean, it kept me busy, so it kept me out of doing the stuff. I still went to the clubs and stuff, but I guess I was so focused on being better all the time because this is one sport. No matter how big, there's always somebody bigger or stronger, or whatever. So I constantly was thinking, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And I constantly was learning things. So I was constantly evolving. So I never got bored. I mean, it's been, 30 something years and I still think I can compete. I'll be 55. But, there was, obviously there was competitive bodybuilding in Hawaii, such a small little circuit. So it's so far away from the mainland stuff. So I mean, there's steroids and that kind of stuff. But I looked at it was such a happy time for me because you put a whole bunch of people in a gym together, working out, trying to be better. This whole little community that I grew up learning. Before I wasn't part of team sports, and now I did like 1 or 2 shows, and all of a sudden I'm somebody. That's where Big E came from. My friend goes, "Oh, you're the Big E." I'm like, "What?" Because it's kind of funny because I'm not a big guy. And then ever since then, so probably since 88 or 89, I got this thing, the name the Big E, which people would laugh. But all of a sudden in Hawaii, I was a somebody.
Right.
And it just made me validated. It gave me confidence. And from then, I knew with the bodybuilding stuff, I had a little bit of success. And people would come ask me for advice. So that's when I kind of started personal training and helping people with posing. Because I loved it. It was easier for me to pass on information. You know, when you teach, you learn twice. So I felt like I was just doing that. And that kind of evolved into the early 90s when I started doing it for legitimate personal training.
Right. So let's get into that. So you're working at the gym, and you mentioned you had like some other jobs, you had good jobs, and you're competing. Bodybuilding is a full-time deal. This is not something you just decide to do sometimes and not other times. If you intend on being competitive, or if you want to be better than you were at the last show, this is not something you turn on and turn off. It is a grind. It is 24/7, 365 days a year. It's planned, it's cold, it's calculated. It can be very lonely. It can be very selfish, and to some, where, you know, for the competitor, it's just this drive and this focus. How are you balancing things? You know, what's going on in life, you know, during this time? I know you're working another full-time job? Are we missing some pieces here? So you're working at the gym at the front desk. Do things evolve onto the floor as a coach, or are you doing other things, or what's going on?
No, in the beginning, I was going to school and working full-time and then bodybuilding. But, you know, that kept me out of, you know, trouble. After that, I was recruited by a nurse who worked at a psych hospital in Hawaii. You there?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, yeah. So he asked a bunch of the bodybuilders, because it's a funny story. We worked there was a psych hospital, and a bunch of the nurses were getting beat up by the patients. So he asked me if I wanted a job. So this is like 1989, 90. And he said it pays like $18 an hour, which is a lot of money back then. And I was like, yeah. He's like, we'll train you on the job. And Eric, I want you to work in the adolescent teen unit because you look young. So perfect. So for 5 years, I worked at a long-term psychiatric hospital for teenagers. And basically, you know, I related to the kids. I learned really good people skills. It was a stressful job, but they fed me all the time. So, you know, I could work double shifts. Like kids were sleeping, I would eat, you know, so it was a perfect job to be a bodybuilder, because it wasn't mentally, it was tough. Emotionally, it was tough. Physically, it wasn't very hard. And I just learned there.
$18 an hour will buy a lot of chicken and broccoli.
Yeah, in 1990, in 89, you know, 89 or 90, I think the rates went up to like $25 an hour in 92, and that was big money back then in Hawaii, you know. So I'm making tons of money. I'm not working hard. I know the person at the cafeteria. I'm eating all the time and training.
Perfect.
And, you know, yeah. So it wasn't so it worked pretty well. And then I worked at a hotel for 10 years. I worked at the Hyatt. I was a valet, then I became a bellman and a front door guy, right. which is. I'm always a big sweaty guy, but it kept me active. And then at the hotel, I ate for free. So still, you know, I always had jobs that complemented my bodybuilding career. Funny enough, if you ask all the real people who know me, I've been pretty successful in my bodybuilding career, but I'm pretty good at being a bodybuilder for like 4 months of the year. And then the other 8 months, I'm not really a bodybuilder. I train hard, but I do zero cardio, and I eat whatever I want. And only when I prep, I do cardio and eat really well. So, and somehow it was successful. So it worked for me. Maybe it was recovery or whatever, but yeah, I'm not the traditional bodybuilder as much as everybody thinks I am.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you're a mutant in that sense. Like hey, to each his own. Everybody's got their own formula, right? And that's what you figure out over the longer term. 29 contests will teach you how to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty.
It worked. Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah. So you roll into coaching at some point. I mean, I have to imagine that the bodybuilding community, and you've already mentioned this, you're on an island, right? Or you're in a group of islands there where you have limited access to things, where as if you lived in Southern California, which is I lived for a long time. There's a show once March rolls around. There is a show every weekend and there has been for a long time, from March till, you know, the Olympia in October, right. You know, when it comes out. So you have an opportunity to see other athletes, work with other athletes, learn other things, enter contests, tune yourself up for different contests and so forth. But you don't get that in Hawaii, and you're likely competing against all the same people, right? So that community's got to be pretty tight. is it friendly during all this time, or is it, are people playing everything pretty close to the chest and not sharing? I mean, are you guys all working out in the same gym? How's that work?
I mean, there was a couple of gyms. It was to me, it was good because kids nowadays, I say kids, but you can see stuff all the time. So back in the day, I didn't know what Joe Blow was doing the town over because there was no internet. So I just focused. It was easy to just put your yellow Walkman on and go train, because there was no buzz. There was no hype. I mean, you heard that so-and-so was going to do the show, but because I guess I was good at talking and networking, I became good friends with all the promoters. And like in 92, they brought Dorian Yates down. Monster. And he guest posed. Right. And then we had a barbecue at his house, and I got to sit down at a picnic table and talk to Dorian Yates for 2 hours. Wow. I got to go find the pictures, but people don't believe it. But he was the most gracious guy, and he talked about hardcore training in the dungeon and how you got to do this and you got to do that. And I was like just in awe. And half the stuff didn't make any sense to me. But basically, I never came at people like, oh, I'm a big fan. You're incredible. I would just go, hey, so what do you think about deadlifts? And he'd be like, really? I go, yeah, because I hear you do this and that, and you do this progressive movement. And I would just come at people with just matter of fact stuff, but being really honest. I knew my stuff, and that's how people would just treat me the same. So like same thing. I hung out with Ronnie Coleman. We traded hats. We talked about stuff. Lee Haney, Lee Priest. Just I guess I never came out as a fan. I came out as like, oh, I want to learn from you guys and these guys. Who's this small guy who wants to learn? But I knew my stuff, and that's how I progressed. I just took information from each person I could get.
That's crazy. You got to be resourceful, right? I mean, you just got to take advantage. Yeah. And again, I think the honesty and the being upfront and, just I'm not a huge fan of this word because I think it gets tossed around a lot, but just being authentic in I really want to know, and I'm really asking you this. This is not, some kid who's, just trying to have a conversation. Like, I think what makes you, the guy that you are and as magnetic as you are is you get that, when you talk to you or when you see you, when I see you, whether, on social media or whatever else, I get that this guy is being real, and that's what drew me to you in the first place. I guarantee you that's why Lee Haney sat down and had a conversation, or that's why Dorian Yates gave you the time. That's why Ronnie Coleman gave you the time, because they saw that in you too, man. So you're taking this advice from these guys and you're doing your stuff. I think there's a pause, right? There's a pause in the bodybuilding career at some point, was there not? I mean, where you had taken some time off from at least competing and walked away. Yeah,
I competed from 87 to 2001.
Okay.
I competed pretty much straight through. I did every single show. I did all the local shows, and then I did California shows. I did the USA Nationals. I won the USA in 96, a long time ago. Back then, but there's only one pro card. Now there's like 85 pro cards.
Right. Yeah, it's a different game.
Yeah. I did a bunch of stuff then. I ended up getting married and having a child. So I took from 2001 or 2 all the way off to 2013. I took off 11 years.
And so you're not competing, but you're staying in the game? You're coaching during that time?
Yeah, for sure. So I started with my first wife. We started a personal training business. We started personal training business in 2000. We had me and her, and we had four employees. We're building tons and tons of hours. So I was doing more personal training. Then my son was born in 2004. Raised him, spent a lot of time, raising him, and I was doing it on the side, coaching people. But I definitely took a backseat for a couple of years. And then 2008, I got divorced and raised my son. And after, just staying in shape, but I knew that somewhere in the back of my head that
you weren't done. That it wasn't over for you. Yeah?
I needed to do something for me. Yeah. And so come around to 2012, my son's getting older. He understands. I think I'm ready. I didn't compete in such a long time. My friends goes, you gotta try. So 6 months, I put it together and qualified, did the USA and got second at age of 48, 47.
Right.
Yeah. 12 years later. So then I'm like, wow, if I can compete with these 20-something-year-olds at 47 after getting ready for 6 months, maybe I got something. So I was back in the saddle again. Yeah.
So let's go back. I think you said it was like 2002 is when you started your own personal training business?
2000.
Yeah. So I was personal training at that point too. Personal training was still very young. As a matter of fact, I think it was like one of the fastest growing professions at the time in the United States. Like it was going like gangbusters. There wasn't really anybody out there that had mastered it. Previous to that, like you were, if you were a coach, you were either a strength and conditioning coach, like you're working with teams, say maybe at a collegiate or a pro level. You know, you're doing, you know, speed and strength and power conditioning, but for very sports specific type of athletes. Or you were a bodybuilder. You might be, you might have been a coach, say that coached track or coached swimming or gymnastics or so forth. But personal training was basically, the personal trainer was the bodybuilder in the gym that no female, quote unquote, wanted to look like, was afraid if she lifted weights, she was going to look like him or her. Right. Or it was an aerobics instructor, you know, who was teaching a step class or some type of aerobics session. So this was fairly new. You're kind of a pioneer at this point. Who are you training?
I actually was to go back a little bit. I actually started in '93, but that was my first paying client was 1993.
Wow.
$20 a session.
Oh,
and from 93 to 2000, I was working 2 jobs, but I learned from a couple guys. They said personal training is a great job, but you got to have something to fall back on. So I basically worked a full-time job and slowly built up my clientele from 93 to 2000. So I've been making money, you know, on the side, training people for nothing or free, and just really building my repertoire, figuring out what I want to do, my niche. And so 7 years I was training people, but not as a full-time gig. And 2000, I built a business and, you know, got a license and, you know, that kind of stuff. By that time we were going to San Diego. There was a big personal training conventions with like Todd Durkin and stuff for speaking.
Yep.
So we went to a couple of those, and that's what I was like inspired. Like you said, it was big business. And people in Hawaii, somebody helped me build a website, and I'm still not a techie guy. And I was getting all kinds of hits on the website. I didn't even know what to do, and nobody was doing it in Hawaii. So I was becoming the top trainer because I was the only one with a website.
Right.
So we were and I went to all these courses, and then somebody told me, you know, you gotta be a good businessman. So my whole main goal was, and this is just me, but I think there's a lot of people who are good trainers, they have good PR skills, and they're terrible businessmen.
Awful.
And there's people who are great businessmen and terrible trainers.
Yeah, terrible.
So my thing is going to be, I'm going to be the best personal trainer I can be. And, you know, there's people who are more technically sound than me. They throw all the big words around, but they get no results. They like to talk to themselves. I didn't want to be that guy. There's always that guy doing the newest thing and with the big words, and she doesn't care what your gastric nemus is. But I want to be a good people person and relate to people, get results, but I want to be able to manage my money correctly. So at that time, my ex-wife took all the training courses, and I took all the business stuff. Mm-hmm. So from 1999, 2000, we're already thinking we got to run a business. And it wasn't easy. I mean, we made lots of mistakes, but I think that's why I've had some longevity, because I've been smart enough to be a good businessman and a good trainer at the same time. Where I see so many people that they're one or the other. They're just not. And I try to give them advice. You got to do this, but people don't want to learn because the internet, everybody's a trainer. So it's a different field now, you know?
It is. And I mean, we're talking, you're really sort of a pioneer in this and had been a pioneer, because there were when the time that you're talking, there were, you know, maybe 2-3, say, personal trainer certifications or professional certifications you could go through, and they were very limited. You know, they're trying to teach, you know, a certain amount of things that when the rubber meets the road, you hit the floor, were these things really getting people results? And I don't mean that the information was bad. It just wasn't really preparing somebody to be very successful either in business or on the floor. There was just a lot of missing pieces. However, there were companies that were trying to do that. From a business perspective, there was nothing. And so what you saw was people trying to apply other business type models to fitness, and some were semi-successful, some weren't. But there were no, you know, like CRM type of, platforms. The internet barely existed, at this point. People were still working off DOS systems at the big, health clubs. If you went to a 24-hour fitness or a Bally or, Nautilus, for crying out loud, you mentioned, those were still kind of hanging around at that time. None of that existed. So you had to come up with this stuff on your own. And, learning that way teaches you a lot of things. And there was nobody running around back in those days calling themselves, a a fitness entrepreneur. You had to figure it out the hard way, and really that sounds like kind of what you were doing there. All right, so you build this business, or you're building this business. Were you making any money?
Yeah, I think because I was good with my money in the beginning. When I had my son, my wife stayed home and she ran the books and she stayed home, and I was doing like 75 hours a week. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then my trainers are billing. But I think I never lived above my means. I never got up and,
right.
I just worked and saved. There was this club called The Gym. This guy, Mike Sapp, he actually trained with Arnold back in Venice. So he came down, so basically we're just independent contractors. We just paid rent, and it was a great deal. So he liked me. So I paid $500 a month. That was peanuts. I could make that in a couple of days.
Right. That's a client.
And then,
right. That's a new client. You're good for the month.
Right. So then I brought a couple of trainers in, and he was charging me three parking stalls. He charged me like $1,200 a month. So it was good. And I got an office and everything. So I had four clients, 4 trainers working for me, which is a pain in the butt. I don't know how you do it, but yeah, I did that for a while. And I basically just worked myself till the bone. But I think it allowed me to make lots of mistakes and correct stuff and figure out what I really want. And for me now, the best thing for me is just to be by myself and just control my milieu and my thing. Nothing wrong with other stuff, but it's not that I wasn't good at manage people, but I just wanted to be focused on myself. So I've done both,
It's tough to be a business owner, a good business owner, and a good coach, especially if your coach. What I mean by that is if you have other coaches working for you. Yeah. Because there's doing the business, of training, and then there's also operating the business of personal training or coaching, and you can't do it all the time, which means something's got to give through there. And if you are trying to train, 75, or 50, 60 hours a week of training and then trying to operate a business with whatever's left over, the business is going to suffer. The training might be good, but that's only going to go so far until you start running out of energy and bandwidth. So at some point you got to start scaling back. But what is that? How do things change for you, and how do you scale back?
In 2008, I got divorced, and then the business basically was dissolved. My ex-wife is an excellent trainer. She's still training. She's a fantastic trainer. We just kind of went our ways. Yep. I basically lost everything.
Got to start over.
Divorced. Yeah, got divorced. My grandmother died, and then the gym where I was training had closed. All in 1 month. Wow. So it was terrible, but it was good because it made me think outside the box. What am I going to do now? So I have this 4-year-old son I have to take care of. And I still have to take care of my clients, and everybody, because I have personal relationships with people, everybody's really understanding. So I basically scraped everything together from ground zero and just worked on getting my clientele back and figuring out a space. So I jumped from space to space for a couple of years until I got my own place and just figured out what I want to do, and I just realized that it's most important to raise my son and be with my family, and everything else will come later. It's like I was so focused on being successful and making money, but it really made me sit back and think what's really, really important. You can always get money. You can't get time back with your child or your family or stuff like that. So I had to really sit back and not be so selfish. And it gave me a whole new perspective. And from there, I grew the business again and just by myself.
Yeah, it's like this.
I have a hard time. Yeah, no. I have this level of what I expect from a trainer, and most people don't reach that. And I'm sure you feel the same. So I have a hard time giving up. I have a hard time seeing you do this, you do that, and this person has this kind of attitude, and I got to deal with they're a great trainer, but then their personalities are a mess. And I just kept trying to bring new people in, and I was like, nah, it's easier for me, for my sanity, to just to raise my son and just focus on just doing as many hours as I can, 30 hours. I was doing like 15 hours a week from 75, because I have to spend time with my son, and slowly built myself up to now where my son is 17. Now I can do 35, 40 hours a week with no problem. Right. But it was good because it really made me realize what's most important. And, the money's going to come, and it grew from there.
Yeah. So coming back sort of from the ashes and having to redevelop everything, but not having to start over because so much, you have so much wisdom at this point. Right. You're making better decisions and more informed decisions to take you down the road. Man, I can't imagine having to start completely over like that, and then having a 4-year-old, to look after. Let's talk about that a little bit. So you've got your 4-year-old son who's, at 4, they're barely in preschool, right? I mean, they're maybe in preschool. So yeah, and they're not independent, not at any level whatsoever. So you're talking 3 meals a day minimally, right? You're talking wake up time, bedtimes. You're talking pick up, drop off if they're doing daycare, and you're doing all these things. Are you training during this time? Like, and what I mean by that, are you working out? Like, are you able to balance that?
I had to, fortunately I have my parents that, live not too far away, and everybody just really, community, people just helped me out. It was tough, but I realized I can sit down and cry, or I can just do what's best. And I realized I have this child who's watching everything I do, and I have to be a good example. I have to be there for that. I can't fall apart. So I just kept plowing away. I would just be upset in the darkness, and on the outside and I didn't want anybody in my business. So I just kept pushing. I did everything I could to make his life best. I became, second place or third place. The training that came slowly. My priority was him, and then was my clientele. And then I realized that my mental health and my physical health is very important. I can't be a good father or a good trainer or son or brother if I'm unhappy or not in good health. So then I focused on just being healthy, not even trying to be a body, but just doing the basics. And it just slowly got better and got a rhythm. He got older, and I got him into a private school. And once his schedule was better, then I can kind of regulate my training schedule. And ever since then, it's been just rearranging my schedule around his. And he's older now, so as he got older, I could do more things, and it developed it. It worked out really well. Yeah. But it made me more selective. And I think this sounds weird, but I mean, other trainers will take on anybody. But I was at this point in my life where I'm more private. I'm realizing my time is very valuable. I was very selective with my clients. So I could do 55 hours a week of anybody, but I decided to do 25 or 30 hours a week of people that are really committed that I wanted to work with. Because after a while, it was just so draining working with 10, 12 people a day who maybe half of them didn't really want to be there and was haggling me about money or showing up. So I just became really selective with my circle of people, my clientele. And I just kind of pulled in, instead of this public person, I just kind of pulled in and just realized, okay, I'm going to reassess my business practices, who I surround myself with, who I share my time with, who I give my energy as far as personal training with. And I just became a more focused person on what I want. I just developed this niche, and it worked out really well. People are like, you're turning money away, but it's to me, I realized I made so much money before, and I was so stressed out, and now I'm making less money, but I'm so happy. And to me, I was realizing that my happiness is way more important.
For any trainer, any coach or trainer that spends enough time in the trade, they're going to learn that lesson at some point. And what you're doing is you're trading time. That's what you're doing. And so you need to know when to say, or set those boundaries, and when to say no, and what you're willing to tolerate, what you're willing to put up with, what you're not. And I made a lot of money in this business over the years too. And I got to be honest, and we'll talk a little bit about this probably, but in the last year I've made less money than I've ever made. But at the same time, I've found moments, and I've found a way to be happier and improve my health and improve my life. It's given me space to do the things that I need to do. And you said something really, really key there that, again, I think, every trainer is going to have to learn at some point, and that is, you need to say no, and you need to know who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. And I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much you're willing to pay me. I don't want to spend time with you. I don't want to trade my time for you. And that's not me being rude or saying you're a bad person. It's just, this isn't going to work out. It's not going to be fulfilling for me. And in turn, that's not going to be fulfilling for you. Because if I'm beyond my bandwidth and I'm showing up stretched, or in what you might call an already in a state that you're already in debt of some level, whether that's your energy, your attitude, in your drive to get it done, then I'm not providing what I need and want to provide that's put me in this place to do it. And when I do that and I show up that way, I internally know that. And so emotionally and mentally, I'm wrestling with that. And quite frankly, for me, that when you do that long enough, then you start to resent things. You start to resent your clients. You start to resent stuff. Exactly. You start to be upset, and it starts to bleed over and trickle over into your relationships and And the worst thing you can do is trickle over into your kids. And because, again, they need to see that example. And I think that's, one of a really important lesson for any coach or trainer or anybody out there for that matter in business and, entrepreneurs working for somebody else. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, you're wasting your time and you can't have that back.
Correct.
There's things you can do. And it's all about choices at the end of the day. So powerful message there, man. So your son, did you tell me he's 17 now?
Just turned 17, yeah.
So, is he? I can speak to this a little bit because we got kids over here too. But is he following the footsteps? Does he spend a bunch of time in the gym, or is he like, nah, Dad, that's for you? Like, I got other interests.
My son, he loves jiu-jitsu. He does, jiu-jitsu, self-defense training stuff. He does spend time in the gym, but I don't necessarily want him to be a trainer. If that's what he wants to be, fine. Right. But his mom's a trainer and I'm a trainer. I want him to do what he wants to do. I think his career is probably going to be in some kind of law enforcement. That's what like my father. Yeah, he wants to follow my father's footsteps, and that's what he seems to be leaning towards. He's a smart kid, so he can do anything he wants to. I want him to be in shape and be healthy. But as far as extreme of like competing in bodybuilding or being a trainer, that's really up to him. I think it's a good job on the side, but to make it full time for most people, it's tough. I know so many trainers in Hawaii, and I would say 20% are successful.
Right.
The other guys are just making it, but they have to bartend or whatever like that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But it's a tough gig, so.
Yeah, it's either your career or it's a side job. And as long as it's a side job, you're never going to be successful at it. You have to decide that. And I get it. I get the people, I get the people that get something out of fitness or have gotten something out of it, whether through bodybuilding or sport or whatever, and they want to share it and they like helping people and they find that people, will talk to them and they get attention by it, and then ultimately maybe people will pay them for their information or for the time they spend with them. I understand. I get where that could look glamorous, but it is really a nowhere road at the end of the day, unless you're really willing to get into it. You painted a pretty good picture on what it looks like for somebody that ultimately makes a career in it. You said you're 55 now, right?
Almost, yeah.
Yes.
Almost 55, yeah. So
look back. Look back 30 years ago, or now 35 years ago to when you got started in this business. How many guys, how many people, when you were doing this then, that just said they were going to make a career out of this, are still doing it now? A
few. Not too many.
Right.
Yeah. And the internet's really watered it down because everybody's an expert now. So I don't even pay attention to that. The people that come to me now everybody's over 65, which is perfect for me. But all the people who are younger, who maybe I would have trained before, they don't want to pay it because they can get it for free because the internet, there's so much information. And that's good. It can be used as a great tool, but they don't realize there's a different connection with working someone one-on-one and working someone on a video,
Yeah.
But I don't even try to sell that anymore. So I don't even advertise. Like mine is my I've been doing it long enough to have a good referral system, and word of mouth in Hawaii is great. So if you're good at something, you'll get great referrals. If you're bad at something, you're gonna get bad. The internet can go either way, right? So
you get in you get out what you put into it. It is a two-way street. I agree with the internet. There's a lot of great stuff out there. I think it lacks context. And I think that's where most people make their mistakes, whether as an aspiring trainer or coach, or as an aspiring fitness enthusiast or consumer of product or services. It just lacks context. It lacks depth, and unless you're really willing to do the work and the research and to ask some questions and be smart about things as a consumer, you really need to be aware of what you're looking at out there. But nonetheless, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be talking today.
Exactly.
So let's talk about this. It's sort of a recent endeavor for you, and that is sort of branding or bringing a name, bringing a term, and bringing an entity of sorts behind what you've been doing your whole life, which is always trying to make every day better. Let's talk about Everyday Better Hawaii and where that came from and how it was spawned. Talk to us about the origins of that, man.
I think probably 10 years ago. I think I always try to. First of all, I really love training people. I love talking. So I think it's not really hard. People can read me. So I always find ways to motivate people. And I just think back to the internet, with the last 10 years, I think what the internet has made these unrealistic goals for people. You know, people always want to be perfect. They want to be this, they want to be that. And I just realized that I told people that we just need to have just attainable, small, short-term goals. Nothing wrong with losing 50 pounds, but let's worry about focusing on losing 5 pounds. And it was just easily for my clients to wrap their heads around. So I started talking about small steps. People say Kaizen or being better every day.
Right.
And I just started saying that, we're trying to be better. And then after a couple of years, people were saying I was trying to, tell my son or tell my wife or tell my friends. And people were saying, well, you're saying that a lot. And I didn't realize I was just audibilizing and replicating. And then people started audibilizing the same thing, better every day. And I thought, but I want to be every day better. And it didn't even grammatically sound right. I thought, I kind of like that. So I have a journal that I write in. And lots of times I write in ideas and never do anything about it. So all of a sudden I'm 50, 4 or 5 years ago, I'm 50. I'm like, I'm going to stop talking about stuff and do stuff. I have to be a good example. I think I'm good at that. But, this whole Instagram, I was on this and I said, I'm going to put out good content because that's how I feel. And I want to see that. So I want to get it back. I don't want all this negative stuff. So I just kept rolling around my head and I wrote down, sketched out some things and I kept going back to it. And I thought, I'm just going to make a shirt and I'm going to make it really simple. I like really, really basic designs. Like your red dot design is really, it's basic. I don't like wordy stuff. I just want something impactful with bold letters that people can see. And I scribbled it out, called a friend of mine who had starting his own brand and he gave me some ideas. So I was going to do a local, food, like a little food review show. There's a comedian and one news guy, and I've done a bunch of stuff for him. I'm the fitness guy. So they said, we're going to do this show and I'm going to wear the shirt. So I wore the shirt, gave them some shirts and did the episode and everybody just loved it. So I posted a picture and I thought I got something here because I'm saying it and they started messaging me different reasons why they liked it. So I made 50 shirts in an hour. I sold 50 shirts. So it never was trying to be a business. I just thought this is a good way of spreading a message. And as it evolved, I thought maybe I should make some shirts and make some hoodies. And I started thinking about people were saying it. Where every time I wore it, they'd say it. They have to every day better. And if you wear a Nike shirt, I'm not going to go, hey, Nike. But they kept saying every day better. Like there's something to this. And I had this gut feeling that, this is going to be something really great. And then people started messaging me I saw a picture with your shirt and it made me happy because I'm having a hard time in my marriage. Or somebody was saying I'm having a hard time with my money, a hard time with my religion or whatever. And I started piecing together people's different stories. And I realized this is not a fitness thing. This is just a positive thing. And I started realizing, I wrote it down. I realized it's a motto. It's a mantra. It's a mindset. It's a movement. It's a motivation. It's my mission. And it's my ministry. So there's a lot of different ways I just got these M's and I kept writing these things down and I got chicken, I'm getting chicken skin now because I thought there's so many ways I can impact people. And then different people started wearing stuff and different people started messaging me. This is the great thing about the internet. And it got me excited. It got me emotional because people were starting to share when they saw how it affected them, when they wore this shirt and their brother just died, or their husband's has colon cancer, or they felt suicidal. And I have all these people that I looked up to during this pandemic who are great businessmen who tell me, I'm depressed. I feel like crap. But you said this little story the other day wearing your shirt. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So simple. So it just kind of organically happened. I never meant it to be a business or a brand. I don't even like saying that, but it's in my soul. I'm literally chicken skin now. It's in my soul.
Me too, man.
I feel like this is my thing that I get to share with the world. And if it ends tomorrow, I'll be a happy man. I don't think it's gonna, because I think it's gonna be bigger than that. But I've organically done it. I told you before, I just got a laptop for the first time at 50, almost 55 years old.
I think that's the best. Everything. That's the best part, man. Yeah.
Everything off of my phone. I don't even have a website, but I tell you this, not being cocky, I'm good with people. And I try to be real as possible. If I have a crappy day, so I think people relate to me on different levels, and I try not to be fake I'm not fake, but just people see the shirt and it's so I went to Vegas the other day and I wore the shirt and the TSA guy said every day better. He told me thank you. And everybody through the casino said every day better. It's like a walking billboard, and they don't realize this. From a business standpoint, people are paying me to buy a shirt and they're wearing my motto. But I don't think about it like that because I've tried to make myself, but it's just, I'm passionate about this. And if I didn't make any money, it would be great because I'm so grateful having an opportunity to impact people in their lives with this thing. And people are in turn impacting other people. There was, quick side note, this guy posted a picture on Instagram a couple weeks ago at a Salvation Army store. He saw the shirt, okay? And he posted the shirt, didn't even know what it was about. I said, this is my Monday motivation. So I found him and I said, did you buy the shirt? He goes, no, who are you? And I said, that's my brand. He goes, wow, I just saw that. It made my day. So somebody bought the shirt, wore the shirt, gave it to Salvation Army. Another person saw it, didn't buy it, and he was impacted. So how many levels of, you know what I mean? So I cried. I'm like, this is what it's all about. It's one easy t-shirt, but I'm affecting people. So it's like, this is greater than personal training. And it's like, I'm going to write a book because every day I'm having these little stories. It's amazing. You know, I got to meet you. Yeah. So, I mean, my mind goes 90 miles an hour with all the things I want to do with it. So I want to start a nonprofit, but I got to do a website first. But yeah, there's a lot of things I want to do. I mean, I've been trying to do a lot of fundraisers and giving back to people. That's what my parents raised me to just really give back. So we had officers that were shot last year. Yeah. We did shirts for them. We just, any chance I can use my platform. I'm nobody special, but if I have a voice in my platform, if I can help people out, that's what I want to do.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
No, you're firing me up just talking to you. I think you're firing up your birds there too at the house too. They're all excited about you too, man. But it's all good. The impact that it has had, and again, I mean, I'm here in California, and when I'm flipping through social media, I don't spend a ton of time on it, but I always get a kick out of seeing the Everyday Better shirts that pop up. And you do a really good job of sort of posting. People love posting. They love posting they're wearing your shirts. And I can attest to this because I've got a lot of EDB gear myself. And, you know, the laundry stacks up, you fold the laundry, you put it away, it's sitting on the shelf, and I'll go 3 shirts deep from the top to grab the EDB shirt because of the way it makes me feel. And I'm proud to wear it. And, you know, and people do ask me about it. What is that? And so I get to tell them, you know, and it's, you know, this is what it is. And this is what it's about, and this is what it's done for me, and it's something everybody can relate to, and it's probably something it's stuff people should be doing every day, and thinking about every day. The craziest part about it all is the community that you've been able to build. Again, you're on a tiny little island, right? In the middle of the Pacific. And I see these shirts being worn all over the world. Not just in the States, but worldwide. Yeah. And
it's been pretty heavy.
I mean, and I just want to repeat what you said there. Like, you didn't even have a laptop until like 2 weeks ago. I think we were communicating, or you posted, or we were communicating a couple of weeks ago. Like, wait, you're kidding me? Like, you've done this. This amazing career, right? You're doing all this stuff, and you're doing it from a phone. I mean, there's a guy who's just about the basics and doing the basics and getting it done. You're doing it from a cell phone. So again, you know, going back, like you did mention a couple of things about the charities and the fundraiser stuff. I want to talk about that a little bit because that was one of the things that really struck me as we're kind of talking about current times and some of the things that have happened in the last year. And I want to get into the community that you built, the community that you live in, and how you give back. And you know, starting with there was an officer involved shooting. 2 officers were killed. I think it was in the end of 2019. No,
it was the beginning of 2020.
Right. Yeah. And so then you'd done a special edition of the shirt, and you'd given that to, correct me if I'm wrong, but did those funds not go to the families of the fallen officers?
We knew one of the girls. She was a competitive bikini girl. The other guy didn't know, but just the fact that my dad was a cop, I can't imagine my dad not coming home. So it just struck home, and we're such a small community. It was such a violent act. I mean, they were shot, badly, and this whole block blew up. So that stuff doesn't happen in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So it just took everybody at heart. Like I said, we're a small community. I cried. I'm just like, I can't imagine that being my dad. And I said, I got to do something. And I realized that I have an opportunity to do something. And people talk a lot. I hate people talk a lot and never follow through. I said, I'm going to take action. You know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I think no rest, no reward. So I said, I'm just going to make a quick shirt with a blue line, Everyday Better. And I'm going to give all the money to these 2 families. And they're like, oh, you can't do that. And it's funny because people have been telling me.
Wait, who's telling you that? Who's telling you can't do that?
People saying you're doing it all wrong. You got to do this. And I just laugh at people because I ask my sisters and my parents. I never listen to anybody. I'm a hard head. But I'm going to do it how I want to do it. Like, well, you can't lose money. So I figured I can make this much. I can sell it for this much and whatever it might cost it. So, you know, I talked to my wife. I'm going to give it all. She's like, that's a lot. If you, because I was going to incur a couple $1,000s of my own money. But I thought, you know, this really touches me. So I basically lost a little money and everything that was profit, I gave them. So more than that. But that wasn't the point. But how many did we sell? A ton. We did it twice. So we raised $8 $8,000 profit. So, I mean, that's not a huge amount of money, but we basically gave $4,000 to each family.
It's t-shirts, man. It's t-shirts. $8,000 worth of t-shirts is solid profit. People started, realizing, well, what are you doing this? And I had to really watch what I said, because sadly, every time there's a tragedy, people do fundraisers and they screw it up. And that's the sad part, because people are like, where's the money's going? What are you doing? So I kept good books. I mean, most people, 95% people thought it was a great thing. 5% would necessarily be like, oh, are you keeping the money? Like, just the internet for you. I just kind of just didn't even pay attention. And I didn't know how to approach the people. So fortunately, my son's in this youth program, police department youth program. So I got to meet the chief, and I mentioned it to her, and then COVID happened. So once I raised all the money, I couldn't give it to the family. Right. So let me time you out for a second. So I think this is a huge part of the story. So this happens just pre-COVID, right? And you're doing this fundraiser. They don't even know it's happening, right? So you're doing this thing, and you want to give the money to the families, but you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to contact them. Right. I mean, obviously this is a very rough time for these families. And so through your son, who's got a relationship with somebody that knows the chief, is how you get connected, right?
Yeah, he's in this youth program, which he loves, because he wants to, be a police officer. Okay. So I network people, and I find out that the chief secretary was a friend of mine from before at the old gym. But I had a lot, and my dad made some calls, but the main thing is I couldn't get it to the people because the pandemic happened, and then
COVID,
went to, you can't meet anybody. So I was basically sitting on this money from, we were raised in April till we just met the families a month ago.
Right. So there was correct me if I'm wrong, there was a ceremony. I think you actually got to meet in person. There was a ceremony done, and how was that, man? How'd that feel?
I never stopped thinking about them, and the sad thing is the police officer who died, he had one son and his wife, and the wife died 4 months later. So this child, 15 kid, lost both parents in 4 months. So I just it tore me up. I got to get this money to this kid. And I called the police department and said, you can't come down. And it's a weird kind of thing, because other people making fundraisers and not giving them the money. It's just really bad. So I just got caught in limbo with holding on to this money, and I would call them every month, say, when can we come meet? And I finally said, I don't care about meeting them. I just want to get them the money.
And you want to know that they got it. Yeah. You want to know that they got it.
I don't really want, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to pat on the back. I just, I'll give it to the chief. I just want to make sure that they get it. I don't want to give it to the uncle. I want the kids to get it. So I need a legal way. And then they have to jump all these loopholes because the way, with money, it's sad that you can't do goodwill anymore, but there's so many people that want hands and stuff like that. We had to find legal ways of making sure there was a fund that could go directly to the kids and not to the uncle who could blow the money. That's the sad part. So I kept calling every month, and finally we got to meet them. With COVID restrictions, it was, so many people. I wanted to bring my dad, couldn't bring him. But my son got to come, and it was heavy because the female officer has 3 daughters. I got to meet them and give them the money. And the male officer passed away, had one son with no mom. And that was he's like a year younger than my son. I couldn't imagine, just the impact. And it was a small thing, but I just felt like we did the right thing, at the right time. And that's what I want to use this Everyday Better, is just to give people hope, give people promise, to empower people. We made masks after that a couple months later, and we gave money to Meals on Wheels and the Hawaii Food Bank. We've done a couple months ago, we did this thing for a family programs in Hawaii, which is foster kids. I'm not a foster kid, but I can't imagine, having parents and being bounced around. So we did a fundraiser for them. We raised a couple $1,000s in a week. So fortunately, I have enough people around me, that connections. We have clients that have tons of money, that these guys are so happy to give a couple $100. They'd rather give it to me to give to these people than give it to some charity with it. I mean, let's be honest with charities.
You don't know where it's going.
90% of the money gets executive costs. It doesn't go to people. So, and like with me, I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I'm like, I'm going to go do this. The year before, we did an elementary school in town that has it's a blue ribbon school. So basically all the kids get free meals because they're so poor. We bought Christmas gifts for every single kid in the school. It was I don't want to cry, but it was amazing. I got to be Santa. It was heavy. We did like 500 gifts. And these kids, little small things. Some of these kids, they only eat at school. And some of these kids never got a Christmas gift for 3 years. It blew me away. So there's people who talk about it and people do it. And I don't want to be the one who talks. I want to be the person who does it. I'm not a millionaire, but if I can make an impact on these people, every time somebody comes at me with, oh, what about this? I'll do it. And it's always worked, so to some extent. But there's people who just have tons of money, don't do crap. And people who talk about it never do it. So I'm not going to be that guy. I met enough people that, it's not hard,
Well, I mean, you just said you had to jump through quite a few rings and hoops. It really, at the base of it isn't very hard, but unfortunately the process has been made harder than it probably should and needs to be. Yeah. And it's, in talking about the community and in the state of Hawaii, I know there are a lot of challenges there. I mean, you have this huge diversity of the haves and the have-nots. So much money in one, very concentrated in one area, and then so little money, extreme levels of poverty in other areas. And that's not different than other states and other countries. It just is, you're in a smaller, you're a smaller area there in Hawaii. And with all the work that you've done and all the things that you've done for the community there, I want to talk about kind of what's been happening there just in this. Let's talk about the last year and the challenges that you've seen and how it's impacted that community, how it's impacted you, and with COVID and the lockdowns. What's going on with the local businesses there and your friends and your family, and where you're seeing people rise up and where you're seeing people do their best and are just continuing to hurt?
The first thing I would say is, like, me and my wife always talk about, we're very grateful. I mean, we're in a good situation. There's so many people that are suffering way more than we are. We've been good with our money. My business was slow for a while. My wife has a job that she's been working consistently, but the economy's bad. I mean, unemployment was like 35%. Because we're a tourism driven economy, there's no tourism. So people say, oh, it's just the tourists, but basically that trickles down to the hotel workers, to the pool workers, to the food distributors, to the taxi cab drivers, it just trickles down. And now you can really see the effects of the trickle down. There's so many people out of work. My next door neighbor worked at the hotel for 29 years. He hasn't worked for 14 months. Wow. 29 years of working at some place and he's not working yet. Fortunately his wife has a decent job and we live in a nice community. But there's some people I know that just 6 months ago, they were laughing at it when they're getting their little stimulus checks. But now the bills are paying up and piling up, and you have evictions. And so it's starting to be heavy. I mean, it's always been heavy, but now I'm realizing it's affecting people, not only at a financial level, but on a mental and emotional level. The good thing about the Everyday Better has really saved me, because this, not trying to be hokey, but it saved my life, because this last year I've got to focus on something very positive and not really focus on all the negative stuff. It's given me an opportunity to help people, whereas everybody else it's hard because they're just worried about their own self. I give me the opportunity to reach people. So I've been grateful with that. As far as personal training, for a couple months I didn't do anything because the building I was in was shut down. Right. My clientele is 75% over 65 now. So that demographic watches the news and believes everything the news says.
Right.
So if the news says can't train, then you can't train. So, for 10 weeks, I got zero income, and I've gotten no PPP. I've gotten zero loans and anything. So I'm the person that just wants to work. I have a hard time taking a handout. I don't want the government to help me. The rules are ridiculous in Hawaii, but I got to go with the flow, and I'm just going to bite my tongue. I'm not going to put out negative stuff. I just want to work. I want opportunity to work. The rules and the mandates and all that stuff here it's been pretty bad. Now we have 20 something cases a day, and we still are on tier 2. Gyms are at 25%. Tourism's not here. It's a mess. It's not a good situation. But I've chosen to be positive. It's been hard on my son. I pay $21,000 a year to go to school. He wasn't going to school. He's online. Wow. And I can't imagine being on a computer for 10 hours a day. It's tough. Kids need to be outside. They need to be running around and playing soccer and jiu-jitsu and laughing at girls. They just need a regular life. And the state, I know California's bad, but Hawaii is very handicapped. It's easy to be, to be frustrated, to be depressed. I know, it sounds hokey, but crime is up, depression is up. It's not the best place to be. So I feel like I got to do my best to make people happy. It's overwhelming sometimes,
I hear and see you doing that every day. I mean, I hear a frustration in your voice, but I don't hear negativity. And I think it's healthy to be frustrated and understand that you are, but then also understand that it's not healthy to stay that way for too long. But it's natural to feel that way, man. And, it's difficult here in California, but the one thing what California has is this is literally the 6th largest economy in the world. There are people here that at the least have been mildly inconvenienced by this whole thing. Right. They're making more money. They're not having to commute to work. And again, that comes with challenges. There's certain, again, inconveniences that come along with that. Kids are at home. That might be inconvenience. But from a health and wellness perspective, really nothing has changed in terms of their financial health or their wealth. And from a relationships perspective, maybe they're not seeing people as often as they did, but they're not in a dire situation. Rules, mandates, things like that. I think we're on the same page. There's some things we find a bit ridiculous here and a bit contradictory. We're literally right now, gyms are the only business that aren't open in California. If you have an outdoor space, you're fortunate, and we have one, and we've been able to kind of keep things going here. But that's not without being harassed by the health department, and that's not without having to, tiptoe or delicately balance, what you hear and see in the community. We're every time we walk in or out our door, and there's no activity happening outside of, some minor daily operations. There's nobody working out inside. We have to worry about people calling the health department on us and things like that. It has been very tough to manage that as a business owner, particularly one that has dedicated their life and career to helping people stay healthy from a mental and emotional as well as physical perspective, to all of a sudden kind of be villainized. And I've spent time angry, and I've just kind of chosen not to anymore, and refocus that energy. And the Everyday Better concept has been a big part of that, man. And I can't imagine being in Hawaii and being so isolated and so dependent on that money that comes in that economy that comes from places like where we're at. I'm watching people, my brother works in sort of the building business, and he's constantly running appointments on homes where they're putting in brand new pools, brand new roofs on their houses, new windows, new gutters, new additions. And they're doing that because they can't travel to Hawaii and spend their money. So a $50,000 swimming pool is getting put in instead of the vacation that they're spending. And you put that into perspective with it trickles down to every single person. And again, if you're not directly impacted by it, I don't think you can honestly understand how that really works. And so for a guy that's in a position to give back, again, not millions of dollars, but a little bit here and a little bit there to impact people on a daily basis there at whatever level it came in. I commend you. My hat's off to you. It's not something you have to do. It literally is something that you want to do and just feel compelled to do. And your community is lucky to have you, man. It's lucky to have you.
I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be a part of it. I mean, I have good friends that opened up a brand new gym in the middle of the pandemic, that Flex Fitness I'm always taking pictures of.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good friends of mine who lost their gym, and they took a big risk, but it's paid off. I mean, they have indoor and outdoor, and luckily you can have 25% inside. Outside is a little different, and they've been successful, and they've done really, really well, and they've filled a niche, and that's a great success story. They're good friends of mine, and I'm really proud of them. That's why I always promote them. But yeah, they're one of the few that have done really, really well in that realm without a lot of hassles.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the older population, the clients that you have there, and a large part of our people are always very surprised when they walk into Red Dot and they walk in the door and they kind of see the diversity of the people we have on our floor. People find their way in from all different walks of life. And we do have a fairly large population of folks that are first-time exercisers. They're really just getting into exercise for the first time in their life. And they're at an age where, things are a little bit more challenging, things are a little bit more difficult. And at this point, currently now, I guess, people are hyper aware, they're being labeled as at the high risk category. And they are very, very concerned for their health in a different way than they were before. They're running on fear. Fear is really driving a lot of their daily actions, a lot of their decision making. And they're being influenced in ways, 40 years ago when you turned on the news, you got people that were giving you the facts. Now it seems like it's a lot of editorialism and activism and things like that. And it's tough to make the transition. I have folks, both my folks are my dad just turned 80 this year and mom's 72, and I'm watching, how they're taking on their information and utilizing it going forward. But in terms of your clients that you have that are sort of in that age bracket, how are they shifting? Are they changing their mindset about how to take care of themselves going forward? Are they at this point maybe realizing that, geez, I haven't been working out, I haven't been lifting weights, and this is how this has impacted me? And is that changing their mindset about what they should be doing? Or maybe they need to be thinking a little bit outside the box, or maybe kind of loosening the reins on their fear a little bit? You get any of that?
Yeah, and I think it's changed people's perspective. I mean, we can be sorrowful and be all depressed. A lot of them have realized that a lot of things they took for granted were taken away, a lot of their freedoms. So, but they do have the opportunity to come in and you can have the opportunity to exercise at your house or go walk at the park or come to me. So I think they've realized that a lot of them are in their golden years. They're retired, they have more expendable income, they have all this time. And now they don't have the luxuries of traveling, doing things that they wanted to. I always ask them to talk to the physician, and the physicians, for the most part, go, yeah, the best thing you can do is go see a private trainer in a clean gym with all the PPEs and everything like that. It's the best thing you do. And they come in and they realize, like, I needed to get out of the house. I needed that stimulation for my brain. I needed that stimulation for my body, fire my central nervous system. I needed that interaction with you. And they realize it's such a great part that they didn't put it as a priority before, but not such a priority now, because that's so like anything else. They go into a store, getting your groceries, going to a doctor. This is an integral part of their week. They come 2-3 times a week, and it's empowering. They feel better. They're not so foggy in the brain. They're not depressed because they're staying at home, so they get a little bit more stimulation. So I think they realize that it's very, very important, and it puts them in a better place. I'm a firm believer, and you are too, that if your body is strong, you can combat anything, so the stronger the body, the better it is for them. Right. So they have something they can control. They can't control how the government this pandemic, but they can control how their body functions and how healthy they are and how they recuperate and, that kind of stuff. So I think they're becoming a lot more aware. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very positive to hear you're saying, that they're coming back with feedback from maybe their physicians or their healthcare providers that they need to be exercising, that they need to get back into that regular activity and go to the gym and versus, what we're not hearing, sort of from leadership, if you will, and that are those very things like, hey, you need to get out there. And what we're hearing is instead of get out and get exercising, our numbers are up, close the gyms, close the salons. And the context behind that is we're the problem. Like all of a sudden we become the problem. We're nowhere near the solution. And we haven't even, the industry as a whole hasn't even been consulted on any of this. And, I think for any of us that have been in it long enough, we do feel a bit insulted by that. And I get it. We probably don't have very good mouthpieces out there. Unfortunately, our industry that seems to be living on social media, the people that maybe aren't contributing the most valid and awesome information are the loudest. They're way louder than the rest of us. And you already identified, you know what, I've just chosen to be quiet. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm going to quietly do it over here. In your case, just on your phone, or as of recently, your laptop. Not trying to do, step outside your so-called lane, maybe. But it's interesting to know that your clients are doing that, and we're seeing that too. And they're not getting that from the news; they're realizing that on their own. And the reason and the way they're doing it is actually because they're taking action and paying attention to the feedback that their bodies are giving them, and sitting back and taking time within the space that they have to realize those things. And I hope that continues, and I think we have to hope that continues as we move forward, moving forward, so that we get to do the things that we want to do, which is help people and help them be better.
We made some shirts. Me and Flex Fitness said exercise is essential.
Yeah, man, I got one.
That's the forgotten piece. Yeah, it's like it's so important. And I try to preach to people, and a lot of my clients who, I have about 30% who haven't come back, and I always try to keep in contact with them. I'm not trying to tell you to come back, but just think what's the best thing for you. And if you're not ready, that's okay. If you want to talk to your doctor, talk to other people, information, fine. Because I want them to be comfortable. But I think people don't understand how important it is there's so many different positive things with exercise and just moving that and being stuck at home it's too much of a depressing bummer, you know?
Yeah, it's good. It's going to create, and it already is creating, and it's an unpopular thing to talk about. I mean, you mentioned a few of those things already. Health concerns, suicide, mental, emotional health, those kind of things that were alluded to earlier. That's going to be an ultimate side effect here that we're all going to have to live with and realize at some point. And, hopefully, the impacts that you're making, as an individual and as a coach and as somebody that's dedicated to helping people, continues to drive that point home and people do come out the other side in a better place. And also, on that point, just kind of wrapping up here, Eric, talking about those people that are fearful, and there's nothing wrong with being afraid. I think we all get it, at this point, but they are fearful about going back to the gym, but they know they need to be doing something, or they're thinking about doing something. They're not quite sure what to do. What practical sort of actionable advice can you leave them with today, wherever they might be in their journey, wherever they might be in the world, in their place, their space, whether it be at home or, another state and wherever outside Hawaii? What could you tell them, man? What should they be thinking about? What should they be doing?
Well, I always tell people just to make a short-term attainable goal. Same thing. If you're doing nothing, getting out in the yard, watering the yard and doing exercise in the yard, doing jumping jacks or walking the dog. In Hawaii, we have such a beautiful place. There's no excuse to go for a walk down to the store. It's not necessarily doing, actually at a gym. I told people just small and just be consistent with it. Write it down. I'm a Post-it guy. Write it down. I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm gonna walk for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, or I'm gonna do sit-ups in the back room, or push-ups, or I'm gonna watch a video or do something on the internet, and just try to be consistent. You'll realize after you've done it for a week or so, you've built a good habit and you feel a lot better. You being consistent. I like to do cardio in the morning because I'll just not do it later. But I tell people there's always something you can do. You can do an exercise video. You can do something in your yard. Do something with a friend. You can go to the beach. You can go for a walk. The gym is what I like, but that's not necessary for everybody. But you have to start doing something. I went to this seminar in San Diego a long time ago, and they said, what is the true essence of being a trainer? And everybody came up with these different, what's the goal to be a personal trainer? What should your goal be? And everybody talked about different answers. And the guy said his was, the best thing to do is encourage people to move. The basis of life is movement. And impact me, because like, it's make money or make people skinny or make people big or make people muscular, whatever. But it's like, no, just to get people to move. So if I can encourage people to move, that's the basis of life. Once we move, we circulate, we feel better. We have oxygen, all these things. Just, it's a small little simple thing, but just movement starts everything. Movement starts interaction. Movement starts circulation. Movement, all these things, just moving. So if I can get people to move, once they move, they'll feel better. Once they feel better, they'll do more things. And once they do more things, they'll be happy. And all those things just evolve into this big ball of happening. It's just a movement. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we probably could have ended on sort of a better note there, man. So it sounds like to me, you probably give somebody the same advice now as you gave them 30 some odd years ago or more when you started in this thing, which is, look, let's set some small goals. And the first thing you should be thinking about doing is just moving more. And once you start doing that, be consistent at it. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need a gym. You don't need an app. You don't need to be entertained while you're doing it. Just find something that you like doing and continue to do it. And put yourself in a place to be better every day.
Right. Correct. Embrace the small successes daily,
I love it, man. Look, I just want to thank you, Eric, for coming on today and spending time with me. Again, I hope at one point we can kind of get together in person and chat this thing out and get a workout together. And in my case, I'd love to soak up some of that Hawaii sun out there. So as soon as we're able to do that in the right kind of way, I'll have to come out there and visit you. But hey, listen, if you could. For people that want to learn more about Everyday Better Hawaii and Eric Yamashita, where can they find you, man? Where should they go to learn more about all that and take advantage of the good stuff that you're bringing out every day? The easiest is Instagram. So just go Everyday Better Hawaii on Instagram. That's the best place to DM me or follow what we're doing.
that's where all my content is. So
yeah. And so if they want to
super grateful. This opportunity has been awesome. Yeah.
You're welcome. If they want to get some t-shirts and contribute to the causes that you're doing, what do? They just hit you there as well.
Yeah, send me a DM. Building a website, so hopefully that'll be functional in the next month or so. But yeah, I'm really good about responding to people. So Everyday Better Hawaii, send me a DM if you have questions or you want to get some gear or just want to talk story or whatever. I'm more than happy to connect with people.
All right, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate you. It's been incredible. Thank you for allowing me. This is an awesome opportunity to be able to share what I do. I hope to meet you soon and have an awesome week.
Likewise. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Iron Sights. If you enjoyed our conversation, you can support our mission by hitting the subscribe button, leaving a review, and sharing the podcast with a friend. I'll see you on the next episode.